Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker, and I'm your host. And today, in an effort to help you to work smarter, we're going to talk about time at a macro level. And I'm excited to have Andrew Wallas with us to have this discussion. He's not just a bloke from the UK, has 40 years of experience guiding business leaders and companies, and he's worked in a variety of different backgrounds, which we're going to hear a little bit more about, but particularly interesting as a psychotherapist. And so he brings the psychology and the business side of things both together. And that's something that I do and I enjoy doing as well. So without further ado, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Penny. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
So I'm excited to have this macro discussion on time. Before we do that, just help the audience get to learn a little bit more about you. What something significant that happened in your life that you feel that will help the leaders to better understand who you are and why this topic is important.
Sure. I am a bloke from the UK. So the most significant thing that comes up for me that is relevant to time is I went into business at a young age. I was very successful in financial terms. I was flying around the world first class. I was making more money than I could spend. And at the age of 28, which was fairly young, I kind of hit a wall, as they say. And I had you could call it a breakdown, a breakthrough, but basically I had a very powerful spiritual awakening, which was an experience of being outside time. And from that moment, which I'm happy to talk about in more detail, but it doesn't really matter. From that moment, my life shifted on its axis. And I went to theological college. I studied theology. I studied philosophy. I studied psychology. I became a psychotherapist. I developed a completely different life path. And then I turned back into the business world and started another business and applied principles that I'd learned to the business community. And these are the two threads through my life. So I now bring them together and I work with individuals and with businesses, trying to support them to transform in the way they want to transform.
Let's understand. So you went outside of time, so to speak. So let's get into that macro discussion then about what is time and what is being outside time. What does that mean? What does that feel like?
I think this is a fantastic topic, fantastic conversation, because in our day-to-day lives, Penny, we tend to forget that time is a construct. Time is not real. Time is a construct that we create, and then we're tyrannized by time. And it's a little bit
for
like
us Americans that might be listening or non-UK speakers. So what does it mean it tyrannizes us?
Tyrannize. It's to be tortured, might be too strong a word, but it's to have our lives run. It's like a despot that is cracking the whip and running our life. And many people, they'd be hard pressed not to admit this, but many men and women that I meet, their lives are run by time. Time is like this despot that's cracking the whip and telling them what to do, where to be, and it's become uncomfortable. And yet we forget that time is a construct. And for me, this again is a very easy entry point for people. I talk to a lot of different groups, and all of us have had the experience. I've had the experience in my life many times where 1 minute seems like a lifetime. 1 minute seems like years.
Right.
Now, I remember once waiting for a medical test, sitting there, and every minute seemed like years of my life. It just was horrendous. Equally, I've had the experience many, many times and continue to do so, where 3 hours seems like 3 minutes. I'm engaged in something, and we're going to talk about this, where time just passes. And these are everyday experiences that every human being has. Now, if you move on from that, they're more structured experiences. So, for example, if you take the dynamic of play, children know how to play better than adults. And I think all of us as adults, we need to learn to play more. But when you observe a child playing, they're outside time. They're not in this sort of prison of time. They lose themselves in play. And that is what I mean by being outside of time. And then other conventional ways for this, if you take something like meditation, meditation has been around for 6,000 years, and lots of people have different forms of meditation or yoga or whatever it is that allows us to step out of time.
Yeah. I just want to stop you there to
Sure.
create some feedback and discussion. So it's true when you think about, like, I remember I was having this discussion with my cousin who plays a lot of tennis. And she says, I don't meditate. Tennis is my meditation.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I think that's true, is that everybody has a different form of where they lose time, where they are in, some people call it flow, or where they just feel like they're engaging in something that they're passionate about and that they're just enjoying, even if it's not for the sake of anything else other than enjoying, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really important, that we understand that tennis or gardening or playing cards. I have a friend of mine who's in his 60s, and he makes model airplanes and boats, and he just adores it. And he can spend 5 hours and he's lost in that. So the key thing is, when we're very wedded to time, we're normally very attached to ourselves. And so we're very involved in our identity and what we're doing. When we're outside time, we normally are lost in time. We're lost in the experience. It's like being in love. Again, a wonderful experience of being outside time. When I was courting my wife and I was madly in love, 6 hours was not enough. It went in a minute.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, I still love and adore my wife. Exactly.
Right. You're right. Those are interesting things. So what keeps us from engaging more and getting in that space, right? Why did we know how to do it as children and lose our way as adults? What do you think is?
I think it's a great, great question. And I think there are multiple answers. And I don't pretend to have the only answers. I think we'd each come up with a slightly different answer. But on a macro level, if you look at the way our societies have evolved through the agricultural age, so if you go back to indigenous populations like the Native Americans, the Aboriginals, the Yogis, they didn't have this problem at all. It didn't exist. So we've evolved our cultures and our societies through an agricultural age, through an industrial age.
Right.
And we've become more like machines. We're very out of balance and very narrowly focused on output, performance. And it's a very narrow way of being. And one of the things I work a lot with businesses, and as you might imagine, it's not an easy conversation, but I say, if you allow all your workforce to play for an hour a day, whatever that means, they'll actually perform better.
Yeah.
But most organizations, you start with Goldman Sachs and the investment bankers, and most of these organizations drive people through time.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I started, my first job was as a consultant, right? And they charge you out by the hour. So they've already got a ceiling that you've got to work so many hours, and it's all about the hour. It's not even about the output in that hour, right? So I know that I was indoctrinated in that way, and it took me a long time to shift away from that. And I call it our tug of war, right? We have this tug of war with time, just like we have a tug of war with our health and our relationships. Like, this is part of our human existence, is to figure this out, I think, is to come back to a place where we can find that balance, find ourselves where we kind of got lost.
I really love that expression, Penny. I think tug of war, that's exactly what the experience is. And I don't have all the answers. I don't have it made. But what I do know is every year I get better at this. So over the last 3 decades, I just get a little bit better. And one of the things, just to go to the extreme of this, that the big organizations, the investment banks, the law firms, the accountants, I remember 10 years ago when they introduced Starbucks and Costas on every floor, and they presented this as a gift to the employees. What they were really saying is we lose too much time. You going down to the ground floor, walking out of the bit. And now,
I know. I used to work for JP Morgan. They gave us free lunch and everybody thought that's great. It was just so that you stayed longer. You could have dinner there so you could stay longer.
And now they all have bedrooms where you can go to sleep for 4 hours,
Right. Well, they also have playrooms. Now, here's an interesting thing, like you were saying. I went to one organization. They have this playroom, right, where there's a pool table and lots of stuff. And we had a business meeting down there because they also had their meeting rooms. Nobody was down there. And I asked one of the managers who was responsible for the meeting that we were doing, I said, it's interesting, nobody's down here. And she says, well, I would hope not, because that would mean they're not working. And I guess she didn't realize, right, what I was saying. And I was like, oh, isn't that, here we have it, but there's a stigmatism that you should be working and not playing and not appreciating and putting together, hey, we've heard the studies that says we should have these things, but we're not fully bought in that it's actually making a difference. How do you bridge that gap?
So I just want to explain, this is a little bit radical, but what I've done for the last 10 years is every 6 months, so twice a year, I unplug from my life. I go to a retreat center in Germany for 2 weeks with no phone, no computer, and I don't talk to my wife. And I walk in the mountains and I meditate and I step out of time as much as I can. Mm-hmm. When I come back, it's like I annoy everyone because I have so much energy. It's like I'm turbocharged. And then I work really hard. I work with a lot of executives trying to get them not to look at their mobile phone for 3 hours. Most of them can't do 3 days. But I do 2 weeks, 14 days, twice a year. And we've got to be disciplined. The problem with any kind of shift or any kind of habit change, it requires discipline.
Yes.
So I do that on a macro scale every year. I've done it for 10 years. Now, what I do during the day is something similar. At given moments in the day, I unplug from my life.
Right.
And that could be a walk in nature. It could be sitting quietly. It could be sipping a cup of tea. But it's a decision not to look at a phone, not to look at a computer, not to engage with time. And it might be a little bit of gardening, listening to music. Music is I can listen to all sorts of ranges of music and lose myself.
So I want to go back to the macro in a moment, but we're here with some great strategies, but I had something I wanted to discuss with you since we're talking about that. But I want to reinforce what you just said, right? You don't have to go to the mountains for 2 weeks a year in order to experience, because everybody's like, oh, they're freaking out right now. So let me just hold on, everybody, calm down. If we could just get you not to put your phone next to your bed and not check it in the morning and in the evening before you go to bed and when you wake up. And if you take these unplug moments throughout the day, short transitions that could have a time frame to it, right? But there's no time in that space. So you take a half an hour mid-morning, you can take that lunch break and actually go somewhere, take back your lunch, right? Don't do it at your desk. Do something that helps you to truly unplug. All the studies show that it makes a huge difference. So I think that's a practical tip that somebody can implement in their schedule right now, is go on and block yourself those moments that no other appointments are going to run over.
And here's a really important distinction, Penny, because we all know, you and I know, we can take an hour off at lunchtime and we can go and sit in a park and we can look at our watch. We're still in the prison of time. So the key to this is not necessarily leaving our desk or not necessarily leaving a computer or a phone or whatever. It's learning how to step out of the prison of time. One of the expressions that we use for this is kind of being aimless, or sort of it's being in that space where we forget what's going on around us. It's almost a little bit between waking life and sleep life. It's just being willing to see the different ways in which, I know this sounds a little bit hackneyed, but if you sit for 2 minutes and really look at a flower, you create that in yourself. You create a spaciousness in yourself. So flowers might not turn you on, but whatever it is you want to look at, you have a different kind of experience. That's the key.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes is enough, by the way. You don't have to go for 2 weeks,
Right. It's capturing those little moments. So for everybody who's listening, just practice that for 1 week.
Yeah.
Is finding every day a few little moments to lose yourself in the moment. Give yourself some space to do that and see what difference it makes. I know that I had a client I was working with, and we just had him on the train. He didn't feel like he had a lot of time, but on the train in the morning for him to just take that space instead of reading the paper for work or anything, just to listen to some music and to do some sort of a meditation that he found was good for him. He said it made all the difference in setting his day up, in shifting so that he wasn't focused on time, right? I think it's also the first thing when you do is if you wake up and you check your phone and you check your email, you're reactive right away. You're already at odds with time, so to speak, right? So that's what everybody is going to do when they leave this show, is they're going to make some difference.
And here's another aspect of it that a lot of people, including me when I first came across this, and most companies have a starting point of they think, if I try this, I'm going to lose something. If I try this, I'm going to lose efficiency. If I try this, I'm going to get less done. In fact, the opposite is the case. But until you try it, the fear is I'm going to get less done. And one of the things that is true of my life, and I don't say this in any boastful way, but I take much more playtime, much more downtime, but I achieve a huge amount in my life. I'm very busy, and also I'm very punctual. So I go to a lot of meetings and I always turn up on time. I'm not one of these people that drifts in. So I take time seriously.
That's discipline too, right?
It's discipline.
And it filters into every area of your life.
Yeah. And one of the ways, we've mentioned music, but I coached a lot of people to, if they're in an office environment, if they're on a trading floor, if it's very intense, go to the lavatory 2 or 3 times a day with your headphones and just take 3 minutes. It makes a big difference. Yeah. I can promise you.
It does.
As you know.
It absolutely does. And most people, you said you get better every year. I think most people, and I'm going to speak for most people because I have the same challenges. I go like this, right?
Okay.
I get better, and then something happens or shifts and things that work don't work anymore, right? I always say things work until they don't. So you have to notice faster what's working and when it's working and do more of that. And then when it's not working anymore, look for new ways. Sometimes we just don't look at it the same. Like I've been writing in a gratitude journal first thing in the morning for many years. And even though I still do it, it's become more of, I'm not as connected to it as I was. Really, so it doesn't work the same. So I have to mix it up. Yeah. So that's something for people to think about too, is that recognize quicker what's not working so that you can shift into something that is.
And my experience is exactly the same as yours, Penny. I go like this too. And I try things and they become less effective. So I switch. But in any measurement, as I've grown older, as I look back into my life, tomorrow I might be 2 steps back from where I am today. That's fine. Right. But over any measurement of time, I've become much better at managing this. But there'll be 2 or 3 days next month when it all goes out the window. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. We don't have to be perfect.
Absolutely. That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
Is also not to look at it on a day-to-day or week, that it's really look back, where was I a year ago? Like, oh my goodness, look at more that I'm able to handle and all these great practices that I have put into place and so forth, for sure. So I want to come back to another macro kind of a thought. Lately, I've been talking about that really when we're focused on time, because I call myself a focusologist, right? So I believe that where we tune our focus, so not just our attention, but also our intention and purpose, our objective, right? And aligning those 3 is that if we're focused on time and we're caught up in that time trap, like you were saying, I believe that that's scarcity mode, right? That is that when we are stuck thinking about time, it creates scarcity. We typically see time as a constraint.
Yes.
Versus when we shift our focus to say, it's about the result. It's about what am I creating? And I don't mean output in terms of, like you were saying, it's not just about the machine output. But if we can achieve the result that we want in our health, in our relationships, then it doesn't matter how much time, right? We're looking for the result. We're not looking for the amount of time that it takes. That might also be play. Then we can use time as a catalyst versus a constraint. I wanted to get your feedback and opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put. And what was coming up for me, and I will loop back in to answer your question directly, but there was a Russian philosopher called Gurdjieff, who nobody's ever heard of. And he once said, human existence is like living in a prison, never checking to see whether the door is open or not. And to me, this is a great analogy for time, because we live in this prison called time. And everyone says, yes, we wake up at 6 o'clock, we go to bed and time is divided by, but it's just a construct. And so for me, the real key with this is to have a different experience. And one of the entry points for what you said, time is essentially a mental construct. It's a mind construct. And we live in mind-dominated cultures. If we drop down to the heart, like one of the things that might sound a little bit trite, but right now in my life, the most important thing for me is love. And I go into businesses and I talk about what would it look like if we were a heart-centered organization? And again, everyone gets frightened and think we'll be less successful, we'll be less. I say, no, you'll be more successful. But if the heart does not have a concept of time in the same way, love, right. If you take the energy of love, the dynamic of love is outside time, essentially. So if we take moments in the day to drop down into love, to think of our loved ones, immediately that's another practice whereby we're not driven by that terrible taskmaster again. And even in a business concept, I don't care how big your business is, there is no problem that love cannot solve. I really believe that. Not in a wishy-washy, esoteric way, in a really practical way. So this is another entry point. Even if I'm working with an individual and you just get them to breathe and you get them to drop down into their heart, they immediately start having a different experience. And guess what? Their blood pressure reduces, their adrenals stop being overactive. There's a whole lot of physiological things that occur.
Absolutely. And I'll come back to the gratitude that I talked about, right? So I found that during the most difficult times of my life, that is what I turned to, because it was, again, on the focus element. We can focus on all the bad things that are going on or things that are difficult. And we do have to sometimes focus on those, but there are moments where we can turn our attention and say, but what do I have to be grateful for? What is working? Who in my life can I turn to, and so forth? And I found that gratitude for me set all those things that you were saying, helped me to calm down, to give me clarity, to give me strength. And yes, there were difficult times, but if I dropped down into that, I had a different experience in going through it than if I chose to focus and get more of an aggression or a survival, or right when we're in other modes in our head, then we have a different experience. And
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Penny. The gratitude is the most gorgeous energy. It's fantastic. You know, someone said to me 40 years ago, they said, I was not in a good place, but they said, Andrew, try feeling grateful and miserable at the same time. And being pig-headed, and I tried it. I spent months. You can't do it.
You can't.
And there's also another little distinction here, which is exactly the same as having the lunch hour on the park bench and looking at your watch. Sometimes we find ourselves being fake grateful or faux gratitude in the mind level. We think someone does something that upsets us and we think, oh, I'm just going to bless that person. This doesn't work. If someone upsets me or someone betrays me, it's okay to have a little rant but then turn my focus, as you say, to what do I feel grateful for right now? And for me, that's a wonderful practice, because over the last 2 years, I think pretty much every day, at some point, I've said to myself, I feel deeply grateful for the house I live in. I have a lovely home. It's in the country. I don't live in a big city. I feel deeply grateful for my wife. I'm married to an amazing woman. And so you go on. And the moment you start experiencing that, everything shifts. You live in a different world.
Yeah, but I think that's the key of what you said is that you're experiencing it, that you're really connected to it, because sometimes we can say things, but we're not connected to
it. Yeah.
And that's what I meant by I was just going through the motions of writing down what I was grateful for. I was grateful for those things, but I wasn't really truly making the connection. So I needed to add music. Music helped me to get back into that connection. It's interesting too, when you ask other people, when you share gratitude, not just do it yourself, but when you share it, right? I've been in gratitude circles. I create some of those and incorporate some of those in my workshops. To hear what other people say is incredible, right? And just in that, it makes you drop down into your heart to hear what someone else is grateful for. Like, I remember hearing someone, and I hadn't even thought of it. I'm grateful for my eyes. I'm grateful that I can see the beauty of fall as it comes around me. And I thought, wow, so am I, but I wasn't connected to it until now, right? And sometimes when we're interacting with other people, or we see stories or hear stories, it helps us to connect to our gratitude or our own story. So I'm a huge proponent of that aspect of gratitude to shift our experience.
When you were talking, I was reminded of something else, one whole new area that is not available to everyone. But one of the things we know, and there's been huge amounts of research on this, is that animals, interacting with animals often puts us into this state as well. So I have 2 little dogs, and every morning at 6 a.m., I wake up, I go into the kitchen to see them. They're ecstatic to see me. And some days I want to say to them, what's wrong, guys? I saw you 8 hours ago, but it's the same every morning. It's like they're seeing me for the first time. And human beings, we are part of the animal kingdom, and we're actually the only species that suffers from this prison of time. And if you observe dogs and cats and ducks and all these other animals, they're busy having an experience. They're busy being in the moment. And they can be our teachers. They genuinely, and playing with a kitten, a cat, a dog is another way that we can step out of time.
Absolutely. The image that came up for me was me coming in the door and my kids running to me like they were dogs, right? Oh, mommy, it's so good to see you. Oh my God, what's wrong? Am I dying? Are you dying?
Exactly.
So I agree that it's that unconditional love that if you can get into that, I think that's what animals represent for me, is that they're in that experience. Oh, I promised her to take her to the dog park and we didn't get there today. She still loves me just as much.
I know, exactly.
So that's a great tip and a great example of dropping into our hearts. Well, it sounds like we could talk about this all day long, right? But I'm going to ask you. I know. Well, that's true. I'm going to ask you one question that I ask everyone. I'm just curious for your answer here is, what's your definition of productivity and why?
Wow. Gosh, I've never been asked that before. I think it would have to be something about the consequences or the effect in the world. So it's important to me to see that my wife feels loved by me, that my children feel loved by me. It's important to me to see that my business colleagues feel valued by me, that we're having fun in the environment. So all of these things, it's important for me to observe and to get feedback that the things that are important to me, like love, kindness, innovation, creativity, all those things, that it's a little bit like putting a stone into a pond and you see all the ripples go out. If there was no ripples, you wouldn't know that what you're doing has any impact or significance. But it's the productivity to me is when I see a face light up because of something I've said, it's an amazing feeling. Yeah. And that's productivity for me.
Okay. Awesome. Just so you know, I've never had the same answer of
Okay, great.
Because I actually used to say, well, productivity is really a feeling. It's like happiness.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can nail down and really define because you can get a lot done and feel unproductive at the end of the day. It's just you didn't get done maybe what you thought you were going to get done, right? It might be a question of expectation or a question of goal and reaching your goal or different things. So I love you brought it back to having others feel valued and loved, right? Which is core to your heart center.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Is there anything else before we close down today's show? Is there anything else that you feel like we didn't touch upon that you think would be interesting to explore right now?
No, as you say, Penny, I could carry on talking. I suppose if there was anything, it would be one of the underlying themes that we've touched on in everything we've said is this idea of connection. So it's like for however long we've been talking, there's this sense of connection in play or with whatever. If we feel connected, then we have a deeper experience. And if we're disconnected, and I've been saying for very many years that the human race is suffering from a massive pandemic. And the pandemic that's all around us is the pandemic of disconnection. We're very disconnected.
I totally agree.
And we need to start by being more connected with our body. That's the starting place. And then we need to be more connected with each other. And the more connected we are, then the deeper the experience we have. Back to our animals, you know?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's really powerful. I believe that as well. And I think that all these tools like social media and the fact that we have text messaging and all these things that claim to create greater connection actually do just the opposite. And it's my belief it's because the conversations are much more shallow.
Yeah.
And so we have these small little moment connections, but they're not deep connections. They're not as valuable, the connection.
Yeah, I agree.
So we get connected first to our body and then each other. What's one thing that you think that we can leave the listeners with that they could do to be more connected with each other?
Okay, it's a great question. So I would just say, don't make it another chore. Don't make it another task, but 2 or 3 times a day, just sit for 2 minutes and take a series of deep breaths. So breathe into your belly, breathe into your heart, just deep, deep breaths, and just bring your awareness to your body. Just see where your body is. And you can even ask the question of your heart, what do you want to say to me right now? You can dialogue with your heart, with your gut, with your eyes. Said being grateful for your eyes. It's an amazing thing. I'm grateful for my feet. They walk around all day long. But just sitting and breathing deeply will create more connection.
Yeah.
It can't not. Breath is life. And we all breathe probably a little bit more shallow than we can do. We can all deepen our breath. So just that as a little exercise, lying in bed at night before going to sleep, taking 6 deep breaths is a wonderful thing to do.
Fantastic. And as we're talking, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, lovely.
Hopefully so is everybody else. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for your insight, your wisdom, and that amazing English accent.
I'm a very fine fellow from London.
Where can we find more about this fine fellow? Tell us.
So it's andrewwallas.org, O-R-G. It's a slightly unusual spelling of Wallas. It's W-A-L-L-A-S, andrewwallas.org.
Fantastic.
And there's quite a lot of material there. There's meditations, there's talks, so it's all free. Just come and get what you want.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Penny.
And thank you all for being here. This was a real treat, right? To get a little macro. And also we had some really good practical tips and things that you can walk away with. So thank you again for being here. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.